I'm Max Pringle with these headlines. Ohio Republican Congressman Jim Jordan has brought the House Speaker's race to a stalemate. Jordan has been unable to win the gavel after 2 rounds of voting, but he and his far-right allies won't step aside for a more viable GOP nominee just yet. The House is tentatively set to convene this afternoon for Jordan to try again. However, it's unclear Jordan will ever have the votes he needs and that the House could remain endlessly stuck for the long haul. Christopher Martinez reports.
There's more talk now of other possible candidates, and it's become all the more pressing with the crisis in the Middle East, as well as the war in Ukraine, even as work in the House grinds to a halt for the Speaker votes. There's been some talk among Congress members of finding a quick way out by giving Acting Speaker Patrick McHenry the power to move legislation instead of only presiding over the Speaker votes. Jim Jordan has endorsed that proposal. But doing that would almost surely require Democratic support to pass, and that's anathema to many Republicans. Reporting for Pacifica Radio News KPFA, I'm Christopher Martinez.
President Biden will deliver a primetime national foreign policy speech tonight. The Oval Office address is scheduled for 5 p.m. Pacific and will address the administration's response to Hamas's terrorist attacks against Israel and Russia's war in Ukraine. It comes after Biden flew to Tel Aviv on Wednesday to reaffirm support for Israel following the Hamas attack on the country on October 7th. In remarks there, after meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Biden urged Israelis to exercise restraint in response to the Hamas terror attack.
You can't look at what has happened here to your mothers, your fathers, your grandparents, sons, daughters, children, even babies, and not scream out for justice. Justice must be done. But I caution this: while you feel that rage, don't be consumed by it. After 9/11, we were enraged in the United States. While we sought justice and got justice, we also made mistakes.
Biden also announced that he's reached a deal with Israel and Egypt to allow aid shipments into Gaza. He also announced $100 million in additional funding for relief for Palestinians. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is in Israel today for the start of a 2-day trip. He says Britain is standing by Israel in its darkest hour as it wages war on Hamas following the Palestinian militant group's October 7th attack. Stuart Smith reports.
As Israel's military prepares for a ground offensive against Hamas militants in Gaza, the UK's leadership is keen to show solidarity with Israel while also pushing for aid to those living in the Gaza Strip. On Wednesday, US President Joe Biden brokered a deal which would have Egypt allow aid to enter Gaza through their shared border. While not deploying troops to the region, the UK has sent a warship full of Marines to the eastern Mediterranean in an attempt to deter wider violence, as have other NATO allies like the US. The UK is also conducting surveillance flights above the skies of Israel and Gaza. Stuart Smith, London.
A Russian-American journalist working for a U.S. government-funded media company has been detained in Russia and charged with failing to register as a foreign agent. Alsu Kurmasheva, who's an editor for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, is the second U.S. journalist to be detained in Russia this year. Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gersovich was arrested for alleged spying in March. Russian state news agency Tatar Inform says authorities accused Kurmasheva of collecting information about Russia's military activities, quote, in order to transmit information to foreign sources, unquote. The Committee to Protect Journalists said Kurmasheva could be sentenced up to 5 years in prison if she's convicted. Film and TV actors are still on strike in what has become the longest walk-off in their history. The strike by the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, hit its 100th day on Saturday. While writers are busy back at work after ending their strike, there's no end in sight for actors. Their talks are ended abruptly October 11th, when studios walked away from the negotiating table, saying the two sides were too far apart to go on. The prolonged strike means films and TV shows will remain sidelined indefinitely, and it's already starting to affect the upcoming awards season. I'm Max Pringle. Those are some of the headlines.